Good morning, Bitcoin. Today is June 20th, 2018. My name is Thomas Hunt, and this is Bitcoin Talk Show. We're going to interview Justin from Misthos live. But first, a quick check of the Bitcoin markets. The price of Bitcoin is down 0.13% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 6,754, a high of 6,806, and a low of 6,572. That's $1 for 14,815 Satoshis. We're keeping an eye on our top story today. Tether Review claims that the crypto asset is fully backed, but there's a catch. The audit was not done by an accounting firm because, according to Tether, there is no accounting firm capable of auditing Tether. They instead released an audit from a law firm. The law firm only claimed that the accounts were intact on June the 1st. The report did not say the accounts were intact before or after June the 1st. We're keeping an eye on BitThumb, the South Korean exchange that was hacked for $30 million in cryptocurrencies. And we're here to announce the Misthos public beta. Let's just get right into it with Justin. Justin, how's it going? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Thomas. Great to be on. Thank you.
So, Justin, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got the idea for Misthos, and what is it?
Well, those are a lot of questions to open with. My background is quite diverse. I studied art and performed and then transitioned into software. I've been a web developer. I've been a consultant for platforms and stuff. And coming into why Misthos, the background is kind of wanting to provide tooling to enable teams, distributed teams that want to collaborate around their financial assets and their cash flow in like a more autonomous type of way. So moving away from these hierarchical management structures that we have in a lot of traditional companies, more to like what you would call in this community more DAO-like structures.
So if you and I were to make a company, generally, as the world is right now, we would just have to trust one of the members with the Bitcoin wallet, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to hold Bitcoin as a company, well, you can even start before that. Even starting a company, there's a lot of overhead involved. Usually, to have a company, you need to register it somewhere. You need to get a bank account, and that's already very strong centralizing tendencies, and often you have to put people in roles that they don't necessarily want to be in or that wouldn't be natural for the project or the context that they're involved in, but just because a bank account needs a name attached or needs a company attached, you have to put someone that's going to be ultimately responsible. So in the Bitcoin world with multi-sig wallets, for instance, you don't have to have that. You can just have your assets in Bitcoin, and you can collaboratively govern and transact out of that wallet.
So what's a multi-sig? How would that be different from a normal Bitcoin wallet?
Well, a multi-sig wallet is a wallet where multiple private keys are securing the funds. To unlock and allow the spending of the Bitcoin that is held by a certain address, you need a certain predefined number of signatures. In a normal address, you just need one signature, and that's enough. In a multi-sig address, you need more.
So a multi-sig's more secure because there's more people, but still it requires some management to send out the funds. If I was to say, spend petty cash on taking someone out to lunch for $20, I'd have to go around and ask everyone to approve the multi-sig.
Yeah, with current technology, current products, the using a multi-sig is a huge hassle, to put it mildly. It just hasn't really been productized in a way that that optimizes for collaboration up to this point. And Misthos, getting back to the big picture, we want to enable collaborative management of cash flow in a larger sense, and money in, money out is just at the core of that. So our MVP is about collaborating around a multi-sig or around some kind of Bitcoin income. But the bigger picture is more like providing a tool that lets distributed organizations or any kind of organizations that have a non-hierarchical internal organization decide how they want to use their funds, basically.
So it's going to make multi-signature wallets easier to use. It's going to make sharing these funds as a business or as a group or organization easier. What about Blockstack, the project that Misthos is built on top of? How does Blockstack work in just a basic general way?
Right. Blockstack is one of many platforms out there right now that are trying to build primitives to make it easy for developers to create what we call now decentralized applications. Blockstack in particular has created a solution in the form of open source software that can be used by developers in the form of libraries, etc., and APIs that provide a solution to decentralized forms of identification, authentication, authorization, and data storage, which are some very, very key elements. Most of these primitives are currently owned by centralized entities. For instance, if you want to log in somewhere, it's always like log in with your Google account, log in with your Twitter account, etc., where those centralized companies basically own your identity that you're using to authenticate yourself. So Blockstack uses the Bitcoin blockchain to tie identities to ownership of private keys or ownership of Bitcoin addresses in a way similar to how DNS works. That enables people to authenticate with applications only by proving, so to say, that they have the private keys belonging to the identity that is registered in the blockchain.
Okay, so it allows you to kind of do smart contracts and other things like that, but use the Bitcoin blockchain, right?
No, I wouldn't say that. It's
right.
not a platform for smart contracts at all. It really provides these three simple building blocks: identification, authentication, authorization. So when you log in with to an app with using a Blockstack ID, the app needs to announce what privileges it should have, and you can approve or disallow those privileges, and data storage, which is another really, really important element. And the way data storage works is that when you register an ID into the Bitcoin blockchain, metadata is attached that provides like a pointer in program speak, but it's like a URL that says, this URL is where you can find my data. And it's a URL that you can control yourself. And all the data that gets written to that endpoint is encrypted by your public key. And you can choose exactly what apps are allowed to read from it, but no one is allowed to write to it. Only you are allowed to write to it. And only only data that is signed by your keys can be stored there. So in the way, it's kind of a way to leverage centralized data hosting providers like Amazon S3 Blob Store or like Dropbox or like Google Cloud, etc. But in a way that Google or Amazon or whoever is hosting the data does not see the application data because it's all encrypted and does not have any idea what's being stored there. And if you want to go really extreme, you could even host it on your own servers if you wanted to. So in that way, you own the data, and any application that you log into with the Blockstack ID never owns any of the data that you input into the app. It all gets stored on your controlled data partition, so to speak. And that's really it. So it's these primitives that allow applications to build on top of. And applications may or may not use smart contracts. They may or may not interact with some blockchain. That's really not part of what Blockstack is providing.
So currently, if I went to a web page and it said log in with Facebook, I would use the login with Facebook button. Facebook would know that I logged into that website. They might know some other things about me. There's a lot of information being collected there. But what you're saying is in the future, we could use this Blockstack to do a login with Blockstack button, and I wouldn't get tracked in the same way, at least by Facebook.
Exactly. So Blockstack doesn't know that you logged in somewhere. The application you log into doesn't get more information from, like you say, your Facebook profile than you want to expose. And yeah, that's basically it.
So then on the third part, you're saying that I could choose my own data storage. So if I was going to use an app like Google Docs, where I make a Word document and it stores it somewhere, right now that's stored with Google. Google can read it. Google can send it to somebody. They can do anything they want with it, right? But under this system, I could decide to store the data on Amazon Web Services or Dropbox or even my own server, and then it would be encrypted and it would be stored on my computer or on something that I control, something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And like document storage is also, and I'm going to shout out now to another app that's currently being built on Blockstack, Graphite, built by Justin Hunter, who is an author who at some point started getting scared storing his entire life's work in Google Docs, realizing because of the reading media reports that Google sometimes by accident took away the journalists' possibility to access their accounts and stuff. So from that fear, he led him to build Graphite, which is basically a Google Docs type of application where all the documents get stored on the storage of your choosing and under your control, but still enables sharing because the storage. The way the storage works is only you can write to it, but you can provide other people the option to read from it. And finding that link of where to read from it is automated again, and it goes back to the metadata that's attached to the Bitcoin blockchain when you register the ID. So it's the whole security of how this works. How can we trust that the data I'm reading is really the data that I'm supposed to be reading, is all because it's attached to the Bitcoin blockchain.
That sounds excellent. And a similar thing happened with Facebook, where a journalist was reporting on Facebook, and then Facebook pulled their entire account, which was a life's history of photographs and friends and everything. And if you were writing a book on Google Docs, I'd be sure not to write a book that's critical of Google, or they might just lose your entire hard drive. You just can't be sure. And that's why it's better to have a decentralized system like that, where you could control where it's stored. You could even have multiple backups through the Amazon cloud or Dropbox or some other service, and you control it. So it's similar to Bitcoin, where you control your private keys, you're your own bank, but now it'd be you control your ID logins, and you also control your data for Google Docs or any other shared application, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And also from the perspective of the developers, it also has a lot of benefits, because the applications you build using this storage infrastructure, they automatically scale, because you don't have to run any data through servers that you own. All the data gets transferred directly from the client to whatever storage provider the user has chosen. You don't even have to care about where it's being stored, because that's a setting in the Blockstack world, connected to the Blockstack ID. And when you log in, then the application just gets provided via the libraries, the open source code that Blockstack has built, with a mechanism here how to store the file. And you don't have to care about hosting the file. You don't have to care about jurisdictional issues. Am I allowed to keep these records? Am I under certain obligations if I'm keeping these records? All of that stuff just falls away. So using decentralization like this is really a benefit to both the user and also the developer side of things.
I also just like the idea that the user has the option to choose. I have a kind of a similar program with Google Voice, where I have a phone number and then it forwards to another phone number. And what this does for me is anytime I want to change my phone number, I just change the second one. Maybe I got a new office line. Maybe I moved to a new state or a new country. I can just change the phone number. Everybody still calls my main phone number, and it rolls right over. Much in this way, you could keep using Graphite as an alternative to Google Docs. Store your program, store your files somewhere. Change your mind. You think it's insecure, whatever. Store them somewhere else. Use the same front end. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, that's exactly right. What you're basically describing in programming terms is a level of indirection between the one phone number and the phone number that you want it to get forwarded to. And you can do exactly the same thing with the storage of with the data that gets stored in Blockstack. The onboarding process onto Blockstack is extremely streamlined. So you can get an ID registered in under a minute if you go through the sign up flow, including a storage provider already set up for you. But initially, the default will be hosted. It will be a blob store that's hosted by Azure, I think, is actually what they're using. That's Microsoft's cloud, set up by Blockstack. The whole encryption and access control applies, so only you can actually access it, but nevertheless, it is stored in an account that they control. But that's just to streamline the onboarding. There's nothing preventing you from, as you say, taking your data that you've uploaded or that apps have uploaded, put it into another provider, and you know, register the new URL pointing to the storage provider that you want to use in your in Bitcoin, in the blockchain.
All right, so Blockstack sounds like a really great project, but you came here today for a demo. Are you ready to demo Misthos?
Absolutely. Let's go and do it.
All right, so we're looking at the website misthos.io, and anyone can go there right now. The link is in the description down below. We also have a link to blockstack.org if you want to check that out. They have the graphite program that's similar to Google Docs and several other decentralized applications that they're working on. And we also have the Medium link down below, so you can check out the article about Misthos. So what do? We just sign in with Blockstack?
Yep, that's right.
And this is actually an actual link of one of those decentralized things. I've already created a Mad Bitcoin's Blockstack identity. And when I click this, it's going to check with some server somewhere that I'm okay. And then it's going to log me into Misthos.
Actually, that's not even a correct assumption. There's no central server involved. That's the beauty.
So it's going to check with a bunch of servers, or it checks the blockchain?
Well, for people who may be following along and want to log in, the first time you click on the login, you would be prompted to install Blockstack, which what that does is it downloads the software that runs a node on your local system. And the node on your local system actually syncs with the blockchain, making sure that the IDs and the storage URLs, etc., resolve correctly. So it's a little bit like having a Bitcoin node locally, though the Blockstack node requires a lot less memory and data, because it's just less involved than running a full Bitcoin node. But it does run in the background. And as you can see now, if you look in the URL at the top left of your browser, the authentication is going via localhost 8888. So actually, what it's doing now is taking the seed that represents the master key that owns this ID that you have stored in your browser. Actually, when you set up the ID, it's taking that seed and with the help, it's never transferring the private key, but with the help of some cryptography, it's going through a certain authentication flow, communicating with that node running on localhost to derive the key that will be presented to the application, because the application never gets access to your master seed key, but it does get access to a derived key that will allow it to write to the storage, as I explained. But that's all happening on your local machine. It never goes through the server of Blockstack.
Yep. And from a user's perspective, like Justin said, I'd forgotten, but I did download that software. I'm running it now on my local computer. It's up in the tray. It has a little tray icon like Dropbox or anything like that. It's just running in the background. And this will allow me to log in. Before we go further, we do have a question from the chat. How much strain will this place on the Bitcoin blockchain if it becomes popular? Does it store a lot of data in the Bitcoin blockchain?
Well, that's a good question. So right now, registering an ID requires a series of transactions, and two, actually, I think. Like first a pre-order and then an order. And it has a reason for that. And basically, it announces the metadata, what identity is connected to what address, in op return. For those of you who know a little bit about Bitcoin internals, op return is like a way to attach metadata to a transaction. So it announces IDs and registers them with an op return. So it requires two transactions to register an ID. The scaling question is, yes, it can scale, because even though it's set up right now, if you register through the browser to do like 2 transactions, it's possible to batch these ID registrations. And you can, I think the way the data works, I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's possible to batch over 100 IDs at once, can be registered in one transaction. So there is some capacity for scaling. Now, what the limits of that are, or at what point it would break down if it becomes wildly popular, I don't know. I haven't looked into those numbers. But I can say that Blockstack engineers are very smart. They've helped me a lot, that's for sure. And I'm really respect them a lot for building what they have built. So I think if that became an issue, I think they'd be up for the challenge, let's say.
And I don't think it's storing that much data in the blockchain. It's mainly just maybe a username or a pointer or some kind of identifier. The actual like big data, if I was to write a huge Word document, that wouldn't go in the blockchain. That would go in this secure storage that is somewhere else, right?
Yes, exactly. It uses a series of indirections. The only thing that gets stored in the blockchain is actually, to be very precise, a hash of the zone file. So the idea of this ID is very related to how DNS works, and DNS works in zone files that get announced to the network of how to resolve a DNS name to an IP address, for instance. And here it's similar. It registers how to resolve an identity to a profile stored on a specific storage provider, but it doesn't even store the whole zone file. It only stores a hash of the zone file actually in the blockchain. So it's not very much data at all. And that's how already now, without any further optimizations applied, they're able to register over 100 IDs in one transaction if they are sufficiently batched. Of course, to batch the ID registration is, again, a little bit of centralization, because then you need one place that will register the IDs. So it's always a trade-off. If you want to register your own ID without anyone ever knowing about it, without it being batched with others and not submitting it to the batching process, then you have to register it yourself. And then the transaction is, of course, relative to the number of IDs you're registering, more expensive.
That seems fair enough. If you wanted to be completely private, where your ID wouldn't be linked to anyone's else ID, you would just pay to do the blockchain transaction yourself, or to pay the Bitcoin transaction. We had similar projects with Factom, and they were storing a lot of data in the blockchain. And I think that the developers of Bitcoin even reduced the amount of data you could store in the blockchain. Maybe the comment field was twice as long, and they cut it in half. So people are keeping an eye on both sides of this. I don't think the Blockstack engineers want to put a lot of data in the blockchain, and I know the Bitcoin engineers don't want a lot of data put in the blockchain. So I think they're both together
Absolutely.
on this. I don't expect a collision or a confusion or anything. They have another
Absolutely.
question in the chat, then we'll get started on the demo. They say, if you allow coworkers access to some of your info, do they have to query the blockchain with the transaction to access it?
I'm not quite sure I understand that question, but I will say this. So IDs that get registered on the blockchain are obviously, to a certain extent, public, because that's the nature of the blockchain, right? So there are indexers. That's a little bit how Blockstack actually works, via they call it a virtual chain that reads the relevant metadata out of the blocks and constructs its own state history, so to speak, of what IDs were registered at what point in time. And this is public because the blockchain is public. And you can look up people's IDs. There is actually an indexer hosted on explorer.blockstack.org. If you want to just share the screen, you could go there and put in your ID, and people could see the exact details of what an indexer can derive from that identity.
All right, maybe we'll do that later. I don't have that open right now. But let's go ahead and go on with the demo. And I think it is really good that people are asking questions, and we're going step by step through this, because it seems really simple when you click on this sign in with Facebook or sign in with Blockstack button. But what's actually happening behind the scenes is the technology, and that is what matters. And that's what we're trying to discuss here today. So I think this is really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And Blockstack have done a great job in making both the developer and the end user experience basically as streamlined as the centralized counterparts like Facebook and Twitter and Google and whatever else you have as identity providers. So that's really amazing. And that's also really what's necessary. If we want people to start using decentralized technologies, I think getting on par with what the centralized technologies provide in a user experience is like entry level. We really need to be an order of magnitude better than what already exists for mass adoption to occur. Or except maybe in very niche use cases that benefit a lot from the decentralization.
I agree. Facebook had to be way better than MySpace to get us to switch over. And much in the same way, if we were switched to a crypto Facebook or a crypto Twitter or anything like that, it would have to be really sharp. So, Justin, are you ready? Are we ready to log in?
Absolutely.
All right. So it's already selected my Mad Bitcoin's Blockstack ID. I've already loaded the app locally, so it's communicating with my local copy and such. So I'm going to click the button, and it says signing in. Oh, we're in the loopy thing. I don't know, Justin, are we having an issue here?
Looks like it didn't work as expected. Could be because of the you stayed on the sign in for a while. Maybe it was the authentication flow timed out. Let's try one more time on your end, or else I'll share my screen.
All right, one more time. I've got a clean browser window. Let's give another try. Oh, it's still
looks very good.
Oh, we had it working before, but you know how it is. It always works in the pre-demo. But let's see what we can do. Maybe
excuse me. When I share my screen, Thomas, is it going to show?
You have a couple of options. One of the options, it'll share just a browser window. Another option, it'll show just the entire screen. So it depends. I'm going to see if I can.
I'll choose the application window. Here we go.
Let's see if I can log in with mine too. I'm still working on it. But
fair enough. Is my screen visible?
Yep, it looks good. It's nice and big.
All right, so this is the regular flow. I'll select my identity here to sign in. All right, and here we go. This list is a list of ventures. So ventures are, like I say, the bigger picture is like providing everything you need for decentralized cash flow management to projects, etc. And in the context of Misthos, we call a project a venture. So I obviously already have quite a few. We're running on testnet, so we can demo it end to end with testnet bitcoins. But first, I'll create a new venture because that's what this is about. Say what I should call the venture, Thomas.
Lemonade stand.
All right, lemonade stand.
It's big business these days.
Oh yeah, create venture. All right.
It's funny to find my password for this thing. It was underneath a local host. My password manager had remembered that I logged in locally to do this.
Yeah.
So let's see.
All right. Just a second. Is it? I'm just going to share something with you. All right. Just helping Thomas set that up. All right. So this is basically the main view of a venture. On the left side, you can see the partners that are involved in this venture. Up to now, it's only one, yourself. You created it. And on the right side, you can see the list of transactions. Obviously, none there yet. It's a fairly normal Bitcoin wallet. You can generate new addresses, and you can pay out. Well, you can only pay out, of course, if you have money, so not right now. But the special feature in this whole thing is add or remove partners, where you can find other people with Blockstack IDs and add them to this venture, which automatically includes them as custodians into the multi-sig wallet. Now, how's it coming, Thomas, with your ID?
None of my windows will log in right now.
All right. Well, given that Thomas is having issues here, I'm just going to add another identity that I control so that I can kind of do the end-to-end demo independently of him. So I'm going to propose Misthos.io test, and this person is now involved in the venture. Typically, in Misthos, there's always a approval process involved in adding people or removing people or making payouts. But because Misthos.io.id, so the creator was the only partner at the time of proposing the second partner, that person is automatically added because the approval, 100% approval, is already there. So there was no process in this case.
So if you were to add a third person, the first two people would have to vote on that third person?
Absolutely. I can add someone else. For example, why don't I just suggest to add you, propose partner addition. And right now, you see here under the partner list that there is a proposal involved here. And you can see the state. So I proposed you, and so I automatically endorsed it because I was the proposer. But Misthos.io test.id, well, this guy, he hasn't endorsed it yet, so it's pending.
So in this way, you can add, you can easily add more people to a shared multi-sig wallet.
Exactly. It's basically the click of a button, or if you already have a couple of partners, then the click and approval of the decision to add someone. Exactly.
So once you have multiple partners in this wallet, what can you do with it?
Well, first of all, let me take the venture link for the partner that is now in it to join the venture. We need to share this link. So I'm just going to pull up Safari, which is the context of that I have set up this other test ID in. And let me just share my whole screen so that becomes visible. How do I change from sharing just one to, here, stop sharing?
Yeah, you have to stop sharing, and then you can share the other window. So.
Yeah, I've got it. Oh, that's the chat. Here we go.
Oh, that's
I'll
funny.
just share the whole screen.
I opened mine in Safari, and then it opened the link back into Chrome. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's super strange. It's opening it into Chrome. So.
Yeah, probably it always opens the default browser. That's the thing. Anyway, so here so this is on the right side is Safari, and I already followed the join link, and it already synced up. It's very quick. So I have the same context in both places. I'm going to reject Mad Bitcoins here because he's not smart enough to get his ID set up. I'm just going to reject this. And so the status is going to be denied, and the suggestion is going to go away. And there we go. The system synced up, so it got the suggestion went away here too. So now that we've got this set up, I'm going to create an address. At this point, this will be a completely backed multi-sig address with both participants providing private keys. And I'm going to, well, here in the warning, we have get testnet coins here. So there's a little faucet for testnet. It's not 100% reliable. I have a backup plan if it doesn't work, but we'll see. Give me some coins. Go ahead.
And they said there are no faucets on Bitcoin. There are Bitcoin faucets for testnet.
On testnet, yeah. But it's certainly taking a while. Let's see if it'll go through.
Well, I'm still trying to load mine, and it's still circling. So, we messed it up.
Something about your local state is messed up, man. I don't know how that happened. We'll have to investigate. Maybe your ID is corrupted somehow.
Too many web browsers open, I think. Too many browser windows.
All right, transaction ID. There we go. So It should sync over here too in just about a second or two. There we go, 2 Bitcoins, I'm rich, oh, just like that. So get a new address. What is this address for? Well, I'm going to demonstrate doing a transaction. So obviously we need to send it somewhere. I'll just send money to ourselves. This is the payout screen when you have Bitcoins. So let's just send, I don't know, 0.1 over there. I can add another recipient. If you want to batch transactions, you can add, multiple outputs. Ideally not to the same address, obviously. This is a waste, but just in case you want to see that. So I'll propose, again, in Misthos, everything is a collaborative thing. So I've proposed it. Again, we see Misthos ID is endorsed. Misthos test is waiting. Over in Safari, it's synced up. I'll just click on endorse, go ahead, and it got accepted, and it's going to sync up over here momentarily. There we go, unconfirmed. It's got a transaction ID. It got broadcast to the Bitcoin blockchain, or the testnet blockchain. Now it's synced up over here as well. And here we have the transaction history. We have the income. We sent ourselves money, right? And here was the payout. And that's basically it. It's really streamlined, just a few clicks, and we got a multi-sig transaction out the door.
So if you and I had a company, maybe a software company, and you were in Estonia and I was in Nicaragua, we could still work together on this wallet. We could confirm each other's transactions. We could control the company. So if you wanted to spend money on dinner, that was okay. But if you wanted to buy yourself a new computer or maybe a sports car, that would not be okay.
Yeah, exactly. You could use this for like small expenses that that people should like get a second look at, let's say, right, to prevent fraud. That's certainly a use case. There are a whole bunch of use cases. Eventually, like I have to stress, this is MVP. So right now, creating is still, I mean, it's pretty streamlined compared to other multi-sig products, but it still requires some manual input of the Bitcoin address, etc. So the way we see this evolving is to streamline it so that payouts never have to be created manually. Instead, people would just submit invoices potentially that get approved. Like if 2 people say, "Oh, I think your invoice for lunch is cool," then we'll add it, and the next time a automatically generated payout is ready to be broadcast after a set amount of time, then it'll just be included. And same with something like payroll. Actually, we have a very advanced idea of how we think funds should be distributed in these kind of leaderless organizations. And the whole model of how the distribution should work is quite interesting, actually. And I go into that in a YouTube video that you've linked. Oh, I'm not sure if you've linked it in this event, but it's linked in the blog post where I kind of pitched the big picture for this at a conference here in Berlin. Yeah, so the big picture is developed by a consultant called Gebhard Borg. He's an author who's been working for almost 2 decades on helping companies, traditional companies in fiat world, transition into becoming more autonomous, more flat in the sense of hierarchies, internal hierarchies and management, etc. And in doing this, he's developed a number of models and ways of working that are really real world tested in terms of decision-making processes and governance structures, etc. And one of the models that he's developed, I think I'll just stop screen share. One of the models he's developed is related to management of finances, including how it should be distributed among participants, how the decision process works, how the social process because there's a whole social process involved, obviously, with coming to consensus in what transactions should be approved or what invoices should be approved, right? And so he has the experience in that. And the problem is, though, there are no tools that support this way of working. So what we're doing is basically taking his models that he's evolved with real-world companies over his consulting career and making it scalable to larger organizations eventually when we built out the features. And this is just the MVP, but there's a long way to go in enabling that.
So this would be the kind of thing that all of the other applications that they're building on Blockstack could use. If you were going to set up a decentralized Twitter or a Facebook, one of the first things I think you'd need is a way to share at least some kind of petty cash or maybe even payroll. And I think this would be great for that, right?
Exactly. So there are a number of use cases, and for example, what you just said, or also maybe for open source projects that want to accept donations, etc., where it's not clear who should have custody of the funds. You just share it in this kind of way, and there will be features coming on specifically for those kind of use cases where you want public auditing. So that, similar to how a Blockstack ID works for a person, you can attach an ID to a venture that would enable discoverability from the outside, and whatever the participants decide should be public can be found then via the same kind of ID system. And what's also really important is there are a number of projects in the crypto space trying to build out governance models, right? In some way connected to or backed by some cryptocurrency. A lot of them build their own blockchain or use smart contracts or whatever. But a lot of these projects have two issues. First of all, the models that they're trying to provide haven't been real world tested. They're more hypothetical, and they're kind of like a solution looking for a problem, right? And the other thing is that almost all of them that I'm aware of are in a way taking legacy structures, governance structures from the old world, and implementing them or making them available with various blockchains and smart contract platforms. And we're taking a completely different approach. We don't want to have anything to do with the old structures. We have a new model, a new way of working, a new governance model. It's opinionated. It's been tested in real world conditions for a number of years. There have been books written about it. And we're taking this knowledge and leveraging the new technologies to enable the most streamlined implementation of the new models that we can have today. And so it's really not about reconstructing the old with new technologies. It's taking a new model and having a symbiosis with the new technology, essentially.
Sounds fantastic. We have a question from the chat. They're saying, how is this similar or different from BitPay's CoPay wallet?
Well, you've used CoPay wallet, haven't you, Thomas?
I have.
So maybe you with the practical experience could answer that question better than me.
All right. The main thing that I'd say when I look at this and I compare it to CoPay is we use CoPay at Purse. I was at Purse.io for a little while. And like I said, we'd share kind of the petty cash. So if I had to go buy office supplies or if somebody bought the whole team lunch, you would get paid back in Bitcoin. So you'd put in a request. I put $30 in for lunch. Everybody would agree. He put it in, and then they'd pay that person back. The problem that we had with CoPay is that startups are very fluid. A lot of employees are coming in and going out. And the way that CoPay works is every multi-sig is unique. So we would have to, if a new employee got hired, we'd have to close down the old multi-sig, transfer the money to the new multi-sig, and get everybody in the room to sign up again on the multi-sig. So we're constantly recreating these wallets, and you really can't use programmers' time that way. They have to focus on their task. You can't be interrupting them to say, sign into this wallet again. It's a real waste of time. And especially if you were in a decentralized situation, like we're talking about with a software company, and you don't even work in the same room, it could be even harder to recreate this wallet. So I think the way that Misthos works is you can share the same wallet, and because of the delegate system, you can vote people in and out, and that this is a better system than CoPay with just the simple multi-sig.
Yeah, thank you for that description. So the killer differentiator here is really the seamless and dynamic reassociation or changing of associations of custodians with the wallet. You can add someone. You saw the process in a few clicks. Someone new has joined, and that person automatically becomes a custodian of the wallet. Similarly, you can remove someone at any time as well. And this seamless experience of having one, essentially one wallet living over the life cycle of a project, essentially, not over the life cycle of a certain group of people, but over the life cycle of the whole project, is quite unique, I think, at this point in time.
And the other difference I would note is the data, right? The data is stored into your private data store. I'm not entirely sure where Copay stores their data. It might be on the local phone, might be on the Copay servers. I don't know. But in this, you'd use the Blockstack data storage thing, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Like the whole synchronizing that you saw between the IDs and stuff, this is all happening through essentially polling of the individual data stores of the participants. So we don't operate any servers. Don't have any visibility into the transactions that you're performing with this, or the approval processes, or even what ventures exist and who has joined what ventures. We don't see that because none of that data is transferred to our servers, which we don't have. So all of the data storage is decentralized in that way.
All right, we've got a question from the audience. They're saying, and this refers to the last question, how are the transactions stored for tax purposes? If a company came to you, or maybe the IRS came to you and they want to get the tax records for our lemonade stand that we've created, would they be able to do that?
Well, that depends, right? Is the answer. So there's I guess the question goes back to you. Do you want them to get it or not, right?
So if you wanted to share and you're like, I want to pay my taxes, I'm going to report this, you could get the transactions. But if I was on the outside and I was just investigating and I wanted to see how much lemonade you had sold, no luck then, right?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't put it past some chain analysis guys to be able to reconstruct transaction histories. It won't be trivial. It won't be easy. We do adhere to Bitcoin best practices in the sense that every address that is used, whether visible or invisible, if it's a chain address or not, is unique. Every address is one-time use only. So it won't be trivial to link a certain group of addresses back to one venture. But whether it's possible or not, I mean, you'd have to ask a chain analysis expert. I tend to think if somebody really, really wants to de-anonymize transactions and they're willing to invest the time, they probably would be able to. But we're certainly going into all the precautions you could expect from a reasonable Bitcoin company to making that not obvious.
And that's the same thing with Bitcoin. It's pseudo anonymous. So if you work together with a bunch of your friends and you're all gangsters and criminals and you're sending money to each other, it's going to be a problem. You want to have those layers in between you. And then as far as the question, yeah, you want to pay the taxes. If you're a proper business and you want to export the records, that's no problem. If you're trying to investigate from the outside, it might be a little more difficult. So
yeah, exactly.
All right. Well,
there's nothing stopping you from owning multiple Blockstack IDs if you want to, use different IDs for different purposes, let's say.
Very good. You can have as many identities as you want. And that's also a good idea. I know a lot of people get stuck on the same identity and they never would have gotten in any trouble if they just had 5 different ones and just rotated them around. Nothing's stopping you. It just takes a little more time, a little more work with it.
That being said, I'm not advocating in any way any kind of illegal activity with Misthos or otherwise.
No, but this is a great way for informal groups, like we're talking lemonade stand or programmers or maybe a meetup. Like we have the meetup, if we needed to share funds and, once a month we pay the bar for beer and pizza. This stops people from stealing the money. This helps us add people to the meetup, take people out of the meetup of our shared wallet. And so I think it would help facilitate all kinds of transactions. And, at least it seems for me, Misthos wouldn't know that I'm running a lemonade stand or I'm running a Bitcoin meetup or any of these things. So you don't have any knowledge. You don't need to know.
Exactly. And that's as far as this MVP goes. But like I said, down the road, we're really looking to rolling out some amazing features to enable much more sophisticated financial management. Right now, it's just money in, money out. That's the core. That has to work seamlessly for us to even consider building all the rest. So right now, this is the product.
We have another question in the chat. They say, what are the implications or possibilities for charities to use this software?
Right, exactly. Charities is another great example where eventually being able to register a venture to an ID and making the history public would benefit a lot, because then you get the whole public auditing. You can see exactly, potentially, if the participants of the venture decide to do so, you could see what income the charity has and where the money is going. Everyone can audit it. You could even potentially audit the decision-making process, etc.
And we've talked about this as well, that later versions will have descriptions. So I could say I spent the money on pizza, and then maybe for a charity, you could publish this kind of thing, and you could see all of the transactions of the charity labeled and completely explained through the software.
Right, exactly.
And we'd also be able to tell if someone voted on it. So if someone voted and said it was okay for me to buy a sports car, we would go to the list of votes and we would see who screwed up and let me buy that sports car. Yeah. So it's
exactly. And in that vein, I'd like to mention that our, let's call it, voting protocol, excuse me, we're not using a blockchain. Like, to see the bigger crypto picture again, the bigger picture of the crypto ecosystem, where every company is doing an ICO or building a blockchain and stuff. We have internally, we have the mantra: no ICO, not building a blockchain, awesome product, right? Because we're really showing with Misthos that you can build all these governance structures and decision-making protocols and collaboration. You can build all this without actually a blockchain. You do need a blockchain for some things. We use Bitcoin for settling the transactions, right? That's something that makes sense. Or we even use Bitcoin smart contracts, in the sense that right now it's backed by a multi-sig wallet, but we're on testnet now. But for our public mainnet release, we want to make the addresses include to that extra security. Private keys got completely lost, etc. So we are using smart contracts, but only where it makes sense. On the other hand, we're really proving that you can build an amazing application enabling the crypto community to do things you can't do with fiat, to find new internal structures, new governance models, without having to build a blockchain or without having to do an ICO. You don't need it. You really don't need it.
Very cool. And I think we about covered it. Where can people learn more about this? Justin, do you have a conference coming up? Anything where you're going to speak, or just Misthos.io?
Right, Misthos.io is our website, and Misthos.io is our handle on all social media, like Medium, where we post the blogs, and Twitter, of course. I'm Body Mind Arts on Twitter, and the next conference I'm going to be at is Building on Bitcoin in Lisbon. Maybe some of you guys are going to be there. If you're interested in, so we've gone public with our testnet release now, and mainnet release is going to go public next month. But if you're interested in becoming a beta tester in the mainnet release right now, you can reach out to us, and we'll give out private access to mainnet. If you have a use case that could really use this right away, then you can contact us. Contact@misthos.io, for example, is an email address, or shoot us up on Twitter or something like that.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Justin, and come back soon when you have the more whatever it is, the non-beta version, the ready-to-go version. We'll do another interview then. We'll try it out. People can try this right now on the website. They can create a Blockstack ID, and then they can try it out just like you did with the testnet Bitcoins, right? If they go to a faucet, they could have kind of a pretend company, and they could give it a try, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Go right ahead. Don't be scared off by Thomas Hunt's incompetence, I'll call it.
It worked beforehand. I had it working beforehand.
So Blockstack is really a solid platform. The engineers are doing a great job. Go there, sign up, get your ID, and try it out. And I'd love to hear your feedback.
Very cool. Let Justin know on Twitter your feedback. Thanks so much, Justin, for joining us. And we'll probably be back later today with some Bitcoin talk show after dark. It depends on the schedule and everything. But if not, we'll be back tomorrow. A reminder, we do have Shem Booth Spain coming up tonight with an interview with Safedine Amos from the Bitcoin Standard. Should be very cool right here on the World Crypto Network. Be sure to give us a thumbs up down below and to share and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, Bye bye.